The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly into the void, a massive space station that could house entire civilizations. Ambassador Lisa Grant walked through corridors lined with representatives from species she had only read about in classified files. Her footsteps echoed against walls that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, translating emotions and intentions across hundreds of different forms of communication. Today, those patterns blazed angry red and warning amber. Every alien eye, sensor, and consciousness in the station seemed focused on the small human delegation making its way toward the judgment chamber. Grant kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced through the implications of what was about to unfold. The massive doors to the council chamber opened with a sound like distant thunder. Inside, the sight took Grant's breath away despite her years of diplomatic training. The chamber rose in concentric circles toward a domed ceiling that showed real-time views of space beyond. Thousands of beings filled the tiered seats representing civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. At the center of it all stood a simple platform where 3 humans waited. Admiral Robert Hayes stood at attention, his military bearing unchanged despite facing the combined authority of galactic civilization. Beside him, Dr. Emma Walsh clutched a datapad containing information that could reshape everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. The third figure, Captain Jake Morrison, kept his hand near his sidearm, despite knowing it would be useless against the forces arrayed against them. High Chancellor Bextar of the Andromedan Collective rose from the central throne, his massive crystalline form refracting light in patterns that conveyed absolute authority. When he spoke, his voice resonated through neural implants that every being in the chamber carried, translating his words into concepts that transcended language barriers. Representatives of the species calling itself humanity, Bextar announced, "You stand before this council accused of violations that threaten the very foundation of galactic peace." Ambassador Grant took her place at the speaker's podium, feeling the weight of thousands of alien gazes upon her. The charges were serious enough to justify humanity's complete isolation from galactic civilization, or worse. But as she looked up at the assembled representatives, she knew that today would mark either humanity's greatest diplomatic triumph or its final chapter as a spacefaring species. "Honored representatives," Grant began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, "humanity stands ready to address these accusations and present evidence that may surprise this distinguished assembly." A ripple of clicking, whistling, and harmonic protests echoed through the chamber. Prime Regent Crix of the insectoid hives leaned forward, his compound eyes reflecting rainbow patterns of skepticism. "Evidence? Your species has been in space for barely 50 standard cycles. What evidence could you possibly present to this council?" Grant smiled, and something in that expression made several nearby aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Evidence, Prime Regent, that humanity's role in galactic affairs has been significantly underestimated." She activated her presentation device, and holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber. The images showed star charts, energy readings, and tactical analyses that made the assembled representatives lean forward with sudden interest. 7 cycles ago, Grant continued, this council granted humanity limited trade rights and restricted access to 3 outer rim systems. We were told that full membership would require demonstration of technological advancement and peaceful intentions over a period of no less than 200 standard cycles. "A generous timeline," interrupted War Chief Gorak of the Predator clans, "considering your species' documented aggressive tendencies." "Generous indeed," Grant agreed. "But during those 7 cycles, humanity has made discoveries that we believe merit immediate reconsideration of our status." The holographic displays shifted to show deep space sensor readings that made several council members recoil in surprise. The data indicated massive energy signatures in regions of space that were supposed to be empty, along with movement patterns that suggested artificial intelligence on a scale beyond current galactic understanding. Admiral Hayes stepped forward, his military training evident in every precise movement. "Honored Council, 3 cycles ago, human deep space monitoring stations detected unusual activity in the outer darkness beyond the galactic rim, activity that appeared to be moving toward inhabited space." "Impossible," declared Archon Thranx, speaking for the Machine Collective. "No organic or artificial intelligence can survive in the void between galaxies. The energy requirements alone would..." Would require technology beyond current galactic standards, Dr. Walsh interrupted, consulting her datapad. Technology that our analysis suggests has been dormant for approximately 10,000 years. A chill seemed to pass through the chamber. Several of the older species had legends about things that lived in the spaces between stars, but those were considered mythology by the modern galactic community. High Chancellor Bextar's crystalline features refracted light in patterns that conveyed deep concern. Dr. Walsh, are you suggesting that humanity has made contact with extragalactic entities? Not contact, Chancellor. Discovery. Walsh activated another series of displays showing massive structures hidden in deep space. Our long-range scouts found evidence of artificial constructs throughout the galactic rim. Constructs that appear to be some kind of barrier or deterrent system. The implications hit the assembled council like a physical blow. If there truly were barriers designed to keep something out of the galaxy, what happened when those barriers began to fail? Captain Morrison spoke for the first time, his voice carrying the tone of someone who had seen combat. The barriers are failing, honored representatives. Our best estimates suggest complete system failure within 18 months. And you expect this council to believe, War Chief Gorax snarled, that a primitive species like humanity discovered threats that escaped the notice of civilizations millennia older? Grant looked up at the towering alien warrior, her diplomatic mask slipping just enough to reveal something that made Gorax's 6 eyes widen in surprise. War Chief, we don't expect you to believe anything. We expect you to verify what we're about to show you. She activated her personal communicator, sending a coded signal that reached far beyond the council station. Admiral Hayes, please initiate Protocol Alpha. Hayes nodded and spoke into his own device. This is Admiral Hayes to all stations. Execute Protocol Alpha. Repeat, execute Protocol Alpha. Alarms suddenly began wailing throughout the council complex. Emergency lighting bathed the chamber in pulsing blue radiance as automated systems announced in dozens of languages that massive objects were approaching the station. Through the chamber's transparent dome, shadows began to eclipse the stars. Not one shadow, but dozens, as ships of unprecedented size and design emerged from faster-than-light travel with perfect precision. The vessels were clearly human in origin, but their scale defied everything the galactic community thought they knew about humanity's technological capabilities. High Chancellor, Bextar's refractions shifted to patterns that conveyed shock and growing alarm. Ambassador Grant, what is the meaning of this display? Grant looked up at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, species that had ruled space for thousands of years, and smiled with the confidence of someone holding cards that no one else had seen. Chancellor, meet the Terran Deep Space Fleet. We've been busy during our 7 cycles of limited membership. The largest of the approaching vessels dominated the view through the dome, a supercarrier so massive it registered as a small moon on the station's sensors. As they watched, running lights began appearing across its hull in patterns that seemed almost organic in their complexity. The TFNS Leviathan, Admiral Hayes announced, returning from her survey mission to the outer darkness. And gentlemen, ladies, and distinguished beings, what she found out there is going to change everything we thought we knew about this galaxy. The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications of humanity's revelation began to sink in. Whatever was coming from the void between galaxies, Earth species had known about it long enough to prepare a response that no one had seen coming. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the Terran fleet's arrival. The Council's highest security chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from across the galaxy tried to process what they had witnessed. Through reinforced viewports, the massive bulk of the Leviathan dominated the view, dwarfing even the largest Andromedan battleships that had moved into defensive positions around the station. Ambassador Grant stood before the emergency tribunal, flanked by her military escort and the weight of revelations that could reshape galactic civilization. The hastily assembled council members represented the most powerful species in known space, but for the first time in millennia, they looked uncertain. High Chancellor Bextar activated the chamber's primary display system, showing tactical analyses of the human fleet that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. Ambassador Grant, this council demands immediate explanation for this unprecedented display of military force. The Terran Federation was granted limited membership status with strict technological restrictions. Restrictions that we have carefully observed, Chancellor, Grant replied smoothly. Every vessel in our fleet operates within the energy signatures and weapon classifications approved by this council 7 cycles ago. Supreme Commander Rax of the Warrior Guilds slammed his armored fist against his console. Impossible. Our sensors indicate power sources that exceed approved specifications by factors of 10 or more. Dr. Walsh stepped forward, her datapad showing readings that made several council members shift uncomfortably. Commander Rax, your sensors are detecting exactly what they should detect. Human engineering simply approaches the problem differently than galactic standard designs. Admiral Hayes activated a communication link to the Leviathan, and the chamber's screens filled with images of the Supercarrier's bridge. The command center looked like a fusion of organic curves and crystalline matrices, with human crew members working at stations that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. Council representatives, Hayes announced, I present Commander Kate Torres of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. Commander, please brief the Council on our recent discoveries. Torres appeared on the main display, a woman in her 40s whose eyes held the depth of someone who had seen the far edges of space. Behind her, the Leviathan's bridge hummed with activity as crew members coordinated responses to data streams that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Honored Council, Torres began. 18 months ago, the Terran Federation detected energy signatures in the outer darkness that matched theoretical projections for ancient technology. We dispatched survey missions to investigate. Survey missions to the Galactic Rim? Interrupted Sage Korvax of the Scholar clans. The void beyond the spiral arms is considered impassable. No known faster-than-light drive can navigate those energy fields. Torres smiled with what looked suspiciously like professional pride. No known drive, Sage Korvax. But human engineering tends toward unconventional solutions. The bridge display shifted to show sensor logs from the Leviathan's journey, revealing star charts that extended far beyond the galactic rim. The assembled council members watched in fascination and growing alarm as the data showed systematic exploration of regions that were supposed to be empty space. What we found, Torres continued, confirms our worst fears about the true nature of galactic isolation. New images filled the display, showing massive artificial constructs scattered throughout the rim. The structures were clearly ancient, built on a scale that dwarfed anything in current galactic civilization. But more disturbing was their obvious purpose. They formed a barrier network designed to keep something out. The barrier protocol, whispered Elder Vex of the Mystic Orders. The ancient warning spoke of such things, but we thought them legend. High Chancellor Bextar's crystalline form refracted light in patterns that conveyed deep concern. Commander Torres, these structures you've discovered, are they still functional? Partially, Chancellor. Our analysis indicates the barrier network has been operating for approximately 10,000 years, but power levels have degraded to critical thresholds. Complete system failure appears imminent. And what happens when the barriers fail? Asked Prime Regent Crix, his compound eyes reflecting patterns of growing anxiety. Torres exchanged glances with her off-screen crew before responding. According to our long-range sensors, failure of the barrier network will allow the return of whatever they were designed to keep out. The chamber erupted in a babel of clicking, whistling, and harmonic protests as different species tried to process this information. Several representatives began frantically communicating with their home governments, while others demanded immediate verification of the human claims. Ambassador Grant raised her hand for silence, and something in her bearing commanded attention from beings who had ruled space for millennia. Honored representatives, humanity offers full cooperation in addressing this threat. But we require complete disclosure from this council regarding historical knowledge of extragalactic entities. War Chief Gorak leaned forward, his predatory features sharp with suspicion. What makes you think this council possesses such knowledge? Because, Dr. Walsh interjected, consulting her datapad, our archaeological surveys of the barrier constructs revealed construction, techniques that match building patterns found in several core worlds of founding. Council species. A chill silence fell over the chamber. The implications were staggering. If the founding species of galactic civilization had known about threats from beyond the galaxy, why had they hidden that knowledge for 10,000 years? High Chancellor Bextar's refraction shifted to patterns that several species recognized as deep contemplation, mixed with ancient fear. Dr. Walsh, what specifically did your surveys discover? Evidence that the barrier network was built collaboratively by multiple species, using technologies that current galactic civilization has either lost or deliberately abandoned. The question is why such a massive undertaking was kept secret from subsequent generations. Admiral Hayes stepped forward, his military training evident in the precision of his movements. Chancellor, our analysis suggests the barriers weren't just built to keep something out. They were built to hide the fact that galactic civilization once faced an existential threat. And now, Torres added from the bridge display, that threat is returning. Our deep space monitoring stations detected the first probe signatures 48 hours ago. Scout formations moving through the barrier gaps with clear intention to penetrate galactic space. Supreme Commander Rax's 6 eyes focused intently on the tactical displays. How long before these scouts reach inhabited systems? At current velocity, approximately 60 hours, Torres replied. But Commander, these aren't just scouts. Our sensor analysis indicates they're gathering intelligence for a much larger force. How much larger? Grant asked, though her expression suggested she already suspected the answer. Conservative estimates suggest a fleet numbering in the thousands, possibly tens of thousands, all showing power signatures that exceed anything in current galactic military arsenals. The council chamber fell into stunned silence as the magnitude of the approaching threat became clear. Species that had maintained peace through superior technology and diplomatic tradition were facing something that made their greatest achievements look primitive. High Chancellor Bextar stood slowly, his massive form casting complex light patterns across the chamber. Ambassador Grant, if humanity has known about this threat for 18 months, why are you revealing it now? Grant looked up at the assembled representatives, beings who had guided galactic civilization for thousands of years, and smiled with the expression of someone about to change the rules of the game forever. Because, Chancellor, the scout formations aren't just gathering intelligence. They're looking for something specific. And according to our analysis of their search patterns, they're looking for the same thing that prompted humanity to build a deep space fleet in the first place. She activated her presentation device one final time, showing sensor readings that made every being in the chamber recoil in shock. They're looking for whoever destroyed their advanced forces 70 years ago, and they just found us. The revelation that humanity had previous contact with the extragalactic threat sent shockwaves through the council chamber. Emergency protocols activated throughout the station as representatives demanded immediate access to their governments and military commands. The carefully maintained peace that had governed galactic civilization for millennia was cracking under the weight of truths that had been hidden for far too long. High Chancellor, Bextar stood motionless at the center of the chaos, his crystalline form refracting emergency lighting in patterns that conveyed deep concentration. When he finally spoke, his words carried the authority of someone making decisions that would affect billions of lives. Ambassador Grant, you will provide complete records of humanity's previous encounter with these entities. Immediately. Grant nodded to Admiral Hayes, who activated a secure data link to the Leviathan. Commander Torres, transmit the Prometheus files to the Council's secure networks. The chamber's holographic displays filled with classified information that made the assembled representatives lean forward with growing alarm. The data showed a human exploration vessel, the TFNS Prometheus, encountering massive alien ships at the very edge of explored space 70 years earlier. Dr. Walsh provided commentary as the records played. The Prometheus was conducting routine survey operations when she detected artificial energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Captain Maria Santos decided to investigate. The sensor logs showed the human vessel approaching what appeared to be a derelict ship of enormous proportions. But as the Prometheus drew closer, the alien vessel suddenly activated, revealing itself to be very much alive and hostile. First contact lasted approximately 14 minutes, Hayes explained, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had studied every second of the encounter. The alien vessel, which we now classify as a devourer, scout, attempted to board and assimilate the Prometheus using some form of biomechanical conversion technology. Supreme Commander Rax watched the tactical displays with professional interest. How did a single human vessel survive contact with such superior technology? By doing what humans do best, Grant replied. We adapted. The records showed Captain Santos making a decision that would define humanity's future relationship with the galaxy. Rather than attempt to flee or surrender, She ordered her crew to overload the Prometheus's fusion reactors and ram the alien vessel at maximum velocity. Captain Santos destroyed both ships, Torres reported from the Leviathan's bridge, but not before her science team transmitted detailed scans of the alien technology. Back to Earth, those scans became the foundation for everything we've built since Elder Vex of the Mystic Order studied the data with obvious fascination. You reverse-engineered their technology from 14 minutes of contact? We reverse-engineered enough to understand what we were facing, Dr. Walsh corrected. The Devourers, that's what we call them, don't just destroy civilizations, they convert them. Transform biological and technological systems into something more efficient for their purposes. War Chief Gorak's predatory features showed grudging respect. And humanity spent 70 years preparing for their return. We spent 70 years becoming something they wouldn't expect, Hayes clarified.
Every human vessel in our deep space fleet incorporates adapted Devourer technology,
but modified to serve human purposes rather than theirs. The holographic displays shifted to show cutaway views of human ships, revealing internal systems that made several council members recoil in shock. The vessels clearly showed hybrid biomechanical designs, with neural networks that pulsed with organic life alongside crystalline matrices that channeled energy in patterns that violated known physics. You've infected your technology with their influence, Prime Regent Crix observed, his compound eyes reflecting patterns of disturbed fascination. We've evolved our technology to fight them on equal terms, Grant corrected. The question is whether the rest of galactic civilization is prepared to do the same. High Chancellor Bextar activated emergency communication protocols, and representatives from across the galaxy began receiving real-time updates from their home systems. What they learned made the current crisis seem even more urgent. Reports are coming in from Outer Rim colonies, announced Sage Korvax, his scholarly demeanor cracking under the weight of incoming data. Long-range sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions throughout the galactic barrier region. Commander Torres interrupted from the Leviathan's bridge. Council representatives were receiving priority transmission from our deep space monitoring network. The scout formations have accelerated their approach. New estimated arrival time is 36 hours. 36 hours? Supreme Commander Rack stood quickly, his military training recognizing the implications. That's insufficient time to coordinate defensive preparations across the galaxy. It's sufficient time if we use resources that are already in position, Hayes replied. Ambassador Grant, permission to reveal Protocol 7? Grant looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, species that had maintained peace through technological superiority and diplomatic tradition. Today, those traditions would be tested against an enemy that played by different rules entirely. Granted, Admiral. Show them what humanity has really been doing for the past 70 years. Hayes activated a galaxy-wide communication array, sending coded signals that reached every human settlement from the core worlds to the frontier colonies. The response was immediate and shocking. Throughout the galaxy, ships began appearing, not arriving from faster-than-light travel, but simply becoming visible as advanced cloaking systems deactivated. The vessels ranged from small scouts to massive dreadnoughts, all showing the hybrid biomechanical design philosophy that humanity had developed in secret. Blessed void, whispered Elder Vex. How many ships do you have? Enough, Torres answered from the bridge. Every human settlement, every trade route, every strategic location has been protected by hidden defensive networks for decades. We've been preparing for this war since before most current council members took office. The tactical displays updated to show the true scope of humanity's hidden military capability. Over 5,000 vessels revealed themselves, organized into battle groups that demonstrated tactical sophistication far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. But more disturbing than their numbers was their evident purpose. Every ship showed design modifications specifically intended to fight the Devourers, incorporating countermeasures for biomechanical conversion and weapons, systems that operated on principles that made several alien observers uncomfortable. You've been planning this war for 70 years, High Chancellor Bextar observed, his refractions showing a mixture of admiration and concern. We've been planning to survive this war for 70 years, Grant corrected. The question is whether galactic civilization wants to survive it with us. Alarms suddenly echoed through the chamber, as long-range sensors detected new contacts at the very edge of detection range. The Devourer fleet was arriving ahead of schedule, and initial scans suggested a force that dwarfed anything in galactic military history. "Contact in 18 hours, Torres reported, her voice carrying the calm certainty of someone who had trained for this moment her entire career. "All human vessels are moving to predetermined positions. We're ready." Supreme Commander Rax studied the tactical displays showing both the approaching threat and humanity's response. "Ambassador Grant, this council needs to know. What are humanity's terms for cooperation in this defense?" Grant smiled with the expression of someone who had been waiting decades to answer that question. "Commander Rax, humanity has only one term. When this war is over and we've shown the galaxy how to beat an enemy that everyone thought was unbeatable, we want to discuss our membership status again. And if we refuse?" Grant's expression grew serious as she looked up at beings who had ruled space for thousands of years. "Then you'll get to see firsthand why the Devourers learned to fear us in the first place." Through the chamber's viewports, the first flashes of weapons fire began to appear in the distance as advanced scouts from both fleets made contact. The war for galactic civilization was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what 70 years of preparation could accomplish. The first Devourer scouts arrived at the outer rim of the galactic barrier, exactly 18 hours after Commander Torres's prediction. Long-range sensors throughout the galaxy detected energy signatures that defied current understanding of physics, as ships that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that hurt to contemplate began their systematic probe of galactic defenses. The council chamber had transformed into a war room, with representatives from hundreds of species coordinating defensive preparations while trying to comprehend the scope of the approaching threat. Holographic displays showed tactical data streaming in from across the galaxy, painting a picture that grew more dire with each passing hour. "Initial contact reports from Sector 7, announced Supreme Commander Rax. His 6 eyes focused on data feeds from the frontier regions. 3 scout vessels engaged by automated defense platforms. The platforms were absorbed. Dr. Walsh looked up from her analysis station where she had been studying the incoming sensor data. "Not absorbed, Commander. Converted. The Devourers don't destroy technology, they improve it for their own purposes." High Chancellor Bextar stood at the center of the coordinated chaos, his crystalline form refracting emergency lighting as he processed reports from across galactic civilization. "Ambassador Grant, your fleet is the only force with experience fighting these entities. What do you recommend?" Grant studied the tactical displays showing the approaching Devourer formations. The enemy moved with precision that suggested vast intelligence and coordination, but there were patterns in their advance that human analysts had learned to recognize. "They're testing our responses," Admiral Hayes observed, standing beside displays that showed real-time position updates from the hidden human fleet. "Each probe is designed to gather intelligence about our defensive capabilities and technological sophistication." "Let them probe," Torres interjected from the Leviathan's bridge. "Every scan they take of galactic technology tells us something about their current capabilities. And Admiral, the modifications we've made to our own systems should give them some interesting data to analyze." Elder Vex of the Mystic Orders leaned forward with scholarly interest. "Commander Torres, what kind of modifications?" "The kind that make us look like easy targets right up until we're not." Torres replied with a smile that several aliens found distinctly predatory. War Chief Gorak studied the enemy movement patterns with professional appreciation. Their formation structure suggests a force designed for rapid assimilation rather than traditional conquest. "They're planning to convert our entire civilization, which means they'll concentrate on capture rather than destruction," Hayes added. "That's going to be their first mistake." The chamber's communication systems activated as priority reports began arriving from contact zones throughout the outer rim. The news was uniformly bad. Every conventional defensive system that engaged the Devourer scouts was quickly overwhelmed and converted to serve the enemy advance. "Frontier, Defense Grid 7 has gone silent," reported Sage Korvax, his scholarly composure cracking under the weight of incoming data. Last transmission indicated biomechanical contamination of all automated systems. Grid 12 reports similar conversion patterns, added Prime Regent Crix. "Whatever technology these entities possess, it seems specifically designed to subvert our standard defensive protocols. Grant exchanged glances with her military advisors before activating her personal communicator. Commander Torres, initiate Phase 2 protocols. It's time to show our guests what human engineering looks like. Acknowledged, Ambassador. All units, this is Leviathan Command. Execute Phase 2. Repeat, execute Phase 2. The response was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the galaxy, human vessels that had remained hidden in civilian shipping lanes and trade routes suddenly revealed their true nature. Freighters shed their disguised hulls to reveal heavy cruisers, bristling with weapons that operated on principles the Devourers had never encountered. Mining platforms transformed into orbital defense stations with shields that bent space-time around them. Incredible, breathed Supreme Commander Rax, watching as the tactical displays updated to show the true scope of humanity's hidden preparations. You've militarized your entire civilian infrastructure. We've prepared our entire civilization for this war, Hayes corrected. Every human settlement, every trade route, every seemingly peaceful installation has been designed with one purpose, to survive. Contact with an enemy that converts everything it touches. The holographic displays shifted to show real-time combat footage from the first engagements. Between human forces and Devourer scouts, the battles were unlike anything galactic civilization had ever witnessed. Brutal, fast-paced conflicts where conventional tactics meant nothing and survival depended on adaptation and innovation. Your ships are actually fighting them to a standstill, observed War Chief Gorak with something approaching respect. How is that possible? Dr. Walsh activated her analysis systems, showing comparative technology charts that made several council members recoil in surprise. Because we've spent 70 years studying their weaknesses, War Chief. The Devourers are incredibly advanced, but they're also predictable. They rely on biomechanical conversion technology that assumes their targets use standard galactic engineering principles. And human engineering is anything but standard, Torres added from the bridge. Our ships incorporate defensive systems specifically designed to resist biomechanical contamination, weapons that target their conversion nodes, and power sources they can't easily adapt. The tactical displays updated again, showing the main Devourer fleet beginning to emerge from the void between galaxies. The sight made every being in the chamber fall silent with shock and growing terror. The enemy force was vast beyond comprehension. Thousands of ships ranging from scout vessels to massive dreadnoughts that registered as small moons on long-range sensors. Blessed void, whispered Elder Vex. There are so many of them. Numbers don't win wars, Grant replied calmly. Preparation wins wars, and humanity has been preparing for this moment longer than most of your civilizations have existed. High Chancellor Bextar activated emergency communication protocols, addressing the entire galactic community. All member civilizations, this is the Galactic Council. We are implementing Defense Condition Prime. All military forces report to human tactical coordination immediately. Chancellor, interrupted Supreme Commander Rax. Are you placing galactic defense under human command? I'm placing galactic defense under the command of the only species that seems to know how to fight these things, Bextar replied. Ambassador Grant, the combined military forces of galactic civilization are at your disposal. Grant looked around the chamber at representatives who had spent millennia ruling space through technological superiority. In diplomatic tradition, today those advantages meant nothing against an enemy that treated technology as raw material and viewed diplomacy as irrelevant. Honored representatives, Grant announced, humanity accepts tactical command of galactic defense, but understand that fighting the Devourers requires sacrifices that your civilizations may find difficult to accept. What kind of sacrifices? Asked Prime Regent Crix, though his compound eyes suggested he suspected the answer. The sacrifice of fighting fire with fire, Hayes replied. To beat an enemy that converts everything it touches, you have to be willing to convert yourself into something they can't handle. Commander Torres interrupted from the bridge. Admiral, long-range sensors indicate the main fleet will reach the galactic rim in 6 hours. Answer, we're detecting something else. Massive energy signatures that suggest they're bringing siege equipment designed for planetary conversion. Grant activated fleet-wide communications, her voice reaching every human vessel from the core worlds to the frontier colonies. All units, this is Ambassador Grant. Today we face an enemy that has terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years. They believe they are the apex predators of the universe, Let's teach them about human evolution. The response came not as words, but as a harmonic vibration that every enhanced human felt in their bones. 5,000 vessels began moving in perfect coordination, their hybrid crews operating with unity that bordered on telepathic. As the first massive devourer ships began crossing the galactic barrier, humanity prepared to show the galaxy what 70 years of dedicated preparation could accomplish against an enemy that had never faced organized resistance. The final battle for galactic civilization began at exactly 1400 hours Galactic Standard Time, when the main Devourer fleet crossed the barrier that had protected inhabited space for 10,000 years. The massive biomechanical ships moved through the void like predatory leviathans, their hulls pulsing with alien life as they deployed in formations designed to systematically harvest entire star systems. Ambassador Grant stood in the command center of Council Station Alpha, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the largest military engagement in galactic history. Representatives from hundreds of species watched in fascination and terror as human forces moved to intercept threats that dwarfed anything in their experience. Contact in 30 minutes. Commander Torres reported from the Leviathan's bridge, her voice carrying the calm certainty of someone who had trained for this moment her entire career. All human battle groups report ready status. Galactic Allied forces are moving to support positions. Admiral Hayes studied the tactical displays with professional intensity. The Devourer fleet numbered in the thousands, each vessel showing power signatures that exceeded anything in conventional galactic military arsenals. But the human response had been coordinated with precision that made even hardened military commanders pause in admiration. Admiral, called Supreme Commander Rax from his coordination station, our combined fleet is outnumbered 5-1. Are you certain this strategy will work? Commander, Hayes replied without taking his eyes from the displays. In war, victory goes to whoever best understands their enemy. And humanity has had 70 years to understand the Devourers. High Chancellor Bextar activated communication arrays that reached across the galaxy. All defensive positions, this is Council Command. Human tactical doctrine is now in effect. All vessels will follow human coordination. Protocols. The response was immediate as thousands of ships from dozens of different civilizations began moving in patterns that demonstrated the sophistication of human strategic planning. But more impressive than their coordination was the evident preparation. Every Allied vessel had been equipped with human-designed modifications that made them resistant to biomechanical conversion. Phase 1 complete. Torres announced as the first wave of human ships engaged Devourer scouts at maximum range. Enemy response is as predicted. They're attempting standard conversion protocols. Dr. Walsh monitored the engagement from her analysis station, watching as Devourer ships fired biomechanical viruses designed to subvert enemy technology. Conversion attempts are being rejected by our defensive systems. The Devourers are encountering technology they can't easily adapt. The holographic displays showed the first major engagement between human and Devourer forces, and the sight made every being in the chamber lean forward with intense interest. The battle was unlike anything in galactic military history. Ships that moved like living creatures, weapons that bent space-time, and defensive systems that seemed to anticipate enemy actions before they occurred. Impossible, breathed War Chief Gorak, watching as human vessels outmaneuvered opponents that should have possessed overwhelming technological advantages. How are your ships matching their performance? Because we're not just matching their performance, Grant replied with satisfaction. We're exceeding it. 70 years of reverse engineering Devourer technology gave us insights they never expected anyone to possess. The tactical displays updated as the main Devourer fleet entered weapons range, and the true scope of the engagement became clear. Massive biomechanical dreadnoughts launched swarms of smaller vessels that moved through space like schools of predatory fish, while human forces responded with coordinated precision that suggested years of training for exactly this scenario. Enemy flagship identified, Torres reported, highlighting a vessel so massive it registered as a small moon on sensors. Biomechanical signatures indicate command and control functions for the entire fleet. Admiral Hayes activated fleet-wide communications. All units, this is Admiral Hayes. Primary target is the command vessel. Execute Dragon Strike protocol immediately. The response was immediate and devastating. Human ships throughout the battle zone suddenly revealed capabilities that no one had suspected, as vessels that had appeared to be conventional cruisers transformed into something far more dangerous. Hidden weapons systems activated, showing energy signatures that made several alien observers recoil in shock. "Your ships are using Devourer technology," Prime Regent Crix observed, his compound eyes reflecting patterns of disturbed fascination. "We're using improved Devourer technology," Dr. Walsh corrected. "Every weapon, every shield, every propulsion system has been modified to serve human purposes rather than theirs." The battle reached its climax as the Leviathan led a coordinated assault on the Devourer command ship. The Supercarrier's hybrid crew worked with unity that bordered on telepathic, their enhanced neural interfaces allowing them to operate their vessel as an extension of their collective will. Direct hit on enemy command structure, Torres announced as human weapons tore through biomechanical armor that should have been impenetrable. "They're not adapting to our attack patterns." "Because they can't," Hayes explained, watching as Devourer forces began showing signs of confusion and coordination breakdown. "We've been using their own technology against them for 70 years. They're encountering weapons and tactics based on principles they invented, but modified beyond their ability to counter." The Devourer command ship began to collapse as cascade failures spread through its biomechanical systems. Without central coordination, the massive fleet found itself facing human forces that seemed to anticipate every tactical decision before it was made. "Enemy fleet is fragmenting," reported Supreme Commander Rax, watching as thousands of Devourer vessels suddenly found themselves cut off from their command structure. "They're attempting to withdraw." "Not withdrawal," Grant corrected, studying the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. "Retreat, the first retreat in Devourer military history." Elder Vex watched in amazement as the biomechanical ships that had seemed invincible began fleeing toward the galactic rim. "They're actually running from us. They're running from the realization that they're not the apex predators they thought they were," Torres observed from the bridge. "Admiral, should we pursue?" Hayes considered the tactical situation. The Devourer fleet was broken, their command structure destroyed, and their technological advantages neutralized. But pursuing them into the void would require resources that galactic civilization might need for reconstruction. "Negative, Commander. Let them return to the darkness with the knowledge that this galaxy is no longer defenseless." High Chancellor Bextar stood slowly, his massive crystalline form refracting light in patterns that conveyed profound relief, mixed with newfound respect. "Ambassador Grant, on behalf of galactic civilization, I formally request that humanity accept full membership in the Galactic Council." Grant looked around the chamber at representatives who had spent millennia ruling space through technological superiority and diplomatic tradition. Today, those advantages had proven insufficient against an enemy that played by different rules entirely. "Chancellor, humanity accepts full membership, but we have some suggestions for improvements to galactic defense doctrine." "What kind of improvements?" asked War Chief Gorak, though his expression suggested he suspected the answer. "The kind that ensure this never happens again," Grant replied. "The galaxy has spent 10,000 years hiding from threats instead of preparing to face them." "That ends today," Commander Torres interrupted from the bridge. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Victory celebrations are breaking out on every inhabited world." Hayes nodded with satisfaction as he watched the tactical displays showing Devourer ships disappearing into the void between galaxies. "Commander, send a message to all human vessels. Mission accomplished. The galaxy is secure." As reports of victory spread across civilized space, the assembled council members realized that today marked more than just a military triumph. It marked the beginning of a new era where humanity would help guide galactic civilization toward a future where they would never again need to hide from the darkness between the stars. The age of fear was ending. The human century had begun,